Total Screen proudly presents their official podcast, On Screen, with your hosts, Tyson Gifford and William Rohrig.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to On Screen, the official podcast of the Total Screen. My name is Tyson.
My name is Will.
And today we are going to be talking about the new Amazon original series from Blumhouse, The Bondsman, stars Kevin Bacon. That's what we're going to be talking about in full spoilers as our main topic. But we've also got an On the Horizon section. We're going to be talking about what's coming up in the next week or so. It's only kind of movie theater movies on May 2nd this time, but we got 3 of them to go through. And then we have a rather large news segment for On Beat, where we've got quite a few news stories covering everything from like the Star Wars Celebration and the Mario Kart Direct, but also we've got like 8 trailers to go over. So there's a lot of stuff there. That's kind of like the meatiest part of our podcast, I guess, this week. But let's kick things off with On the Horizon.
On the horizon.
On the Horizon is where we talk about what's coming up in the next week or so. And as I said this week, we've just got 3 movies all coming out on May 2nd. Different things about them are interesting. I normally think if it would come down this low, I would probably cut this segment. But the 3 movies in particular are interesting enough to actually keep the segment this week. So first up, we have Rust coming to theaters on May 2nd, as all of them are. For those who don't remember, Rust is the movie that Alec Baldwin accidentally killed the director of photography on the movie.
Yeah.
So
okay. I was like, that sounds so familiar, but I don't remember what that was supposed to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess it's coming out now. I don't.
Guess so.
So that's going to be coming out in theaters on May 2nd, and for anybody who's interested in that, you can check that out. But I'm not too terribly interested. It's just kind of weird. I mean, when The Crow came out, it was kind of like it was going to be such a big breakout role for Brandon Lee and stuff, and they'd already filmed most of it. Like, there was very little that wasn't done at the time. And this just seems like a very different case than that.
Right, yeah.
But next up we have The Surfer, also coming on May 2nd to theaters. This is that Nicolas Cage movie, that weird one where he's like taking his son.
Yeah, and then like he's harassed by like the locals.
And then it's like they're in a cult or something, or I don't know. There's like all sorts of weird shit going on.
It just goes to weird places because it's Nicolas Cage movies.
Yeah. So if you're into the Nicolas Cage weirdness, you know, that's coming on May 2nd to theaters as well. And finally, the big movie opening up on May 2nd in theaters is Thunderbolts.
Yeah, that's the second
MCU
major MCU movie of the year.
Mm-hmm. This
looks like a lot of fun.
It looks really good.
We've talked about
I'm hesitant. Like, we've talked about every time we've talked about a trailer for this or something, we've always talked about how I think we're both kind of cautiously optimistic about it.
Yeah. I mean, trailers haven't looked bad so far. Like,
trailers have been really good, actually. Like,
yes.
You know, especially like the more recent trailers. Like, there was that one that was like that Absolute Cinema trailer or whatever that was like made it look like an A24 film or something.
Yeah. The marketing has been on point for this movie.
And early reviews have started to come in and they seem to be pretty positive.
That's good.
So that's like a good sign. That's like the opposite of what happened with, you know,
with
Brave
Captain
New World.
America. Yeah, Brave New World. We're like, I could see like that movie wasn't, you know.
Well, we watched the trailer for it and we were like, man, it looks good. It's got those like Winter Soldier vibes, but we were both like so haunted by what happened the last time we saw a trailer with Winter Soldier vibes, which was Secret Invasion, and how shit that turned out to be, that it was like, it should have been something that made us really hyped for the trailer, but instead it like immediately raised red flags for us.
Yeah, it did. And then I think like the more I saw of it, like the less like confident I was in it. Like I was just like, yeah, I don't know. This looks kind of like a mixed bag.
And then the early reviews started coming out and it was like, not good.
Yeah, exactly.
So Thunderbolts is looking like maybe it'll be good. So I'm kind of excited for that. I'm really hoping it's good, but like I'm being cautious on that one.
Yeah. I'm definitely being cautious too with it.
But that is it for our On the Horizon segment. And now we're moving on to On Beat.
On Beat.
On Beat is our news segment, and like I said, we've got quite a few stories to go over and 8 trailers to talk about as well before we get into our full spoiler segment. So let's start in our news segment with Keanu Reeves has been cast. He's going to play the villain in a Weezer mockumentary.
Yeah, so this kind of came out of nowhere, right? Because this was, I don't even know if this, I guess it was announced. I originally thought like it was a rumor. One of those movie leakers leaked this, apparently. It was being reported, like, as a rumor. I guess it got confirmed. I don't know exactly when, but, like, I thought, that's weird, right? And
I heard Rivers Cuomo confirmed it, so.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and it was like,
I was like. The singer and, like, band leader of Weezer.
And apparently, like, they want to do this as, like, the same deal as, like, Weird the Al Yankovic story, where, like, it's, like, a comedy, like, documentary of Weezer, and, like, so the description I saw said like it's in the vein of Scott Pilgrim meets Weird the Al Yankovic story.
Yeah, except as a documentary, like style. Yeah. So maybe like Spinal Tap structurally or something.
And I think Keanu Reeves will make like a really fun villain in like a comedy setting. I think so.
He was good. And did you ever see that movie? It was like a straight to Netflix movie. It had Asian Jim from The Office in it, and God, I can't remember the actress's name, but she was one of the leads in Beef, that one with
oh yeah.
But she's a stand-up comedian. It was like her movie. She was like the lead, and then it was the guy from Asian Jim from The Office, and then Keanu Reeves was in it, and he played like the villain, but he played himself. Like she was dating him, and it was the Asian Jim from The Office was the other male that like was supposed to be dating her or something, and so Keanu Reeves was like the romantic rival or whatever, but he played himself in like this very ridiculous version of himself. So I could totally see him really pulling off this kind of like a villain in like a music mockumentary kind of thing.
Right.
But our next news story, The Elder Scrolls 4 Obvlivion ReMastered was announced and shadow dropped.
Yes.
It's out now.
It's out now. You can buy it. This was basically had been rumored for ages, with Jeff Grubb and Nate Drake was like saying like, oh yeah, this was definitely going to be announced and dropped in April. They were correct. I'm super stoked for this personally because Obvlivion is like one of my favorite games. I mean, when I got my Xbox 360, the first game I got for it was Obvlivion. I spent like a good month or two just like going through and all the content. I completed all the quests, got all the achievements.
That was a launch game for 360, wasn't it? Or it was close to launch?
It was close to launch. I think it came out.
Morrowind was the original Xbox, right?
Yeah, Morrowind was on the original Xbox.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so this was this came out for the 360 in the spring of 2006. So like a few months after.
Okay,
launch.
So like in the second year of the system.
Yeah, because the system came out in November 2005, so.
Yeah, so it came out like before the PS3 and Wii came out, basically. But before.
In that year. Yeah, but before. Yeah, exactly. Played it, had a wonderful time. It was like my first open world game too, like, so it was interesting. And so yeah, like I'm super stoked to see this. I saw the graphics. Graphics looks like a huge upgrade. Doesn't look like they changed much about it, which is like good, because like if they tried to like change it or like modernize it, I don't know how that would work out too well.
Well, the faces aren't quite as objectionable as they were before.
Yeah, they fixed the faces somewhat.
Yeah, they don't have the dead, lifeless, like, serial killer lizard eyes that they used to have.
Bethesda jank is what I call it.
I'm not a fan of Elder Scrolls or Bethesda. I don't really enjoy any of their games or play them or bother with them, so.
I think like there's some like
it's kind of a crazy story that this just came out so quickly, though.
I think there's some of like the best Western RPGs ever made.
I think CDPR has them beat.
Yeah, I mean that's fair.
But I don't know, man. It's for those who are into that. This is a big deal, and it kind of just came out of nowhere. Like you said, there were rumors about it, but then it just came and shadow dropped, and it's out. And it's like, wow, that's just like fast.
To me,
it's like Metroid Prime Remastered is the last time I could think about something like that happening.
Something that big being shadow dropped. Yeah, exactly. It's like, I'm surprised they chose to shadow drop this.
Yeah. I mean, it is a remaster. It's not like a new game.
It's not like a new game.
Yeah.
It's not like Elder Scrolls 6 just came out out of nowhere. That'd be insane.
But it seems like it's getting the same kind of reaction as like Metro Prime Remastered did, which is just like a lot of excitement and confusion.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, our next news story is kind of a threefer, and that is Star Wars Celebration Tokyo happened, and they had quite a bit of news for Star Wars. Most of it really, wasn't that interesting or big to talk about, but there were three fairly interesting pieces of news there. One, I think, came out before Star Wars Celebration, but then they showed pictures and stuff to have more of a confirmation on it. And that is that Game of Thrones Rory McCann is going to replace the late Ray Stevenson in Ahsoka Season 2. Rory McCann played the Hound in Game of Thrones. Ray Stevenson was a great actor who was in one of the Punisher movies.
Oh yeah.
Like the pre-MCU Punisher movies. He was in Rome, the HBO series. That's kind of where I first took notice of him. Mm-hmm. Very kind of strong presence for an actor, like kind of a big guy, strong presence type roles, and very sadly passed away. I think before Ahsoka came out. I think he passed like almost right before the first season of Ahsoka came out. And yeah, they're continuing on with that character, but with Rory McCann, the Hound, portraying the character this time, which is, I think it's a good pick. Like, they don't necessarily look that much alike, but they're both big kind of strong presence type guys,
Yeah, exactly. I think it fits what they're doing with that character,
Yeah. The next piece of Star Wars news that was on the interesting side is Star Wars Starfighter, which is, we knew that there was some kind of a Star Wars project with Ryan Gosling involved. We didn't really know much about it. Well, this is it. It's called Star Wars Starfighter, and it's Ryan Gosling's the lead, and it's him, and he's partnered up with a 15-year-old or something, it said. So they're really going into that whole kind of children in the Star Wars universe kind of thing. They started that with the Skeleton Crew, and now Starfighter looks like it's kind of doing the Lone Wolf and Cub kind of thing too. And that was also, that's The Mandalorian, also kind of like a Lone Wolf and Cub story,
Right. Oh yeah.
So it seems like this is a new area they're kind of exploring in the Star Wars universe, is pairing up a grizzled character with a kid. But that's going to be probably a pretty big deal one for Star Wars. And then we also got a new Star Wars series announced, an animated series, Star Wars Maul, Shadow Lord, the return of Darth Maul. So Darth Maul just won't stay dead.
They wanted to bring him back. They teased it at the end of Solo, which went nowhere.
They brought in Darth Maul for one movie. He had no dialogue or very little dialogue in it. Died at the end of the movie. Then they brought him back for Clone Wars and made him this huge deal, and that kind of the Star Wars animated universe, he kind of became this in the shadows kind of
I love type this
figure.
I love this whole George Lucas thing of creating these characters that are cool and that fans glob onto really quickly, and then giving them the most minimal screen time before killing them off in the movies. And then
Boba Fett, yeah.
Yeah, and then it's up to extended universe content to flesh them out and give them more to do.
There are characters that in Star Wars in the original trilogy that were cut from the movie, but they still had toys came out with little blurbs of backstory about them and stuff.
Yeah.
And those became some of the most sought after Star Wars toys, because they're just, it's this character and it's not actually in the movie.
The Kenner Star Wars line of toys from the 70s, the 80s is so wild, because they literally were willing to make and sell a figure of anybody from Star Wars canon. I'm pretty sure somebody over there combed through freaking George Lucas's notes looking for references to characters that they could make figures out of.
I think whoever was in charge of that company must have founded Funko.
You must have, yeah.
Because it's kind of the same mentality.
Yeah, same mentality.
Just make a toy of fucking everything. But that's it for the Star Wars Celebration news. Our next piece of news is that they announced the Nintendo pre-order dates, which we're saying because the pre-order date is tonight.
It's tonight, midnight Eastern, 9 p.m. Pacific.
By the time you're listening to this, they're probably already all sold out.
By the time you're listening to this, you missed the pre-orders. So I don't even know why. I don't even know why we're mentioning this, to be honest. Because it's kind of pointless.
Well, it also segues into our next thing, which is that they had the Mario Kart Direct that we were all waiting for, and was promised to have all this stuff and really show that it was worth the price. Apparently, that's what the hype was going into it from everybody.
Oh yeah,
really kind of a disappointing Direct, I think, for the most part.
I think it was fine. I think people had their expectations too high. They were going to, and I agree.
It's kind of Nintendo's fault.
Yeah, it's kind of.
They were kind of saying to get their hopes up high.
I don't know if they were saying that. They were saying there was going to be a direct that was going to be about Mario Kart, and they were going to talk more about Mario Kart, which are like all things that happen.
In the interviews, I think both Bill Trinan and Doug Bowser.
Oh, I don't know. I
both
don't know
made
what
comments
in
about. They were asked about the price point, and they said, "Wait for the Nintendo Direct."
Oh yeah, I remember like reading that. Yeah, like
there's an implication that like something big was still coming.
Yeah, okay, that's on them, 100%. Yeah,
nothing big really came.
No,
I mean it's a big game, but
it's a big
kind
game.
Of everything we got announced here is shit we already knew about for the most part. Very little was shown that we didn't know about. One of the few things was, I guess, battle mode, but the battle mode doesn't even look particularly that interesting. Like it looks like it might be a little bit lesser than what's in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which I guess is a step up from Mario Kart 8, like the original Mario Kart 8 on Wii U, which had like the worst battle mode, but it just seems like a real bare bones battle mode. That's kind of like the one truly new thing that was shown there. And I guess they said time trials, which is like, yeah, obviously.
I mean, there wasn't anything like shown that you would expect in a Mario Kart game. It's just like, I didn't go into it with like these huge expectations. I know like last week you asked me for a prediction and I kind of didn't have like anything like specific in mind. Like I said, like maybe a story mode. Kind of just pulled that out of my ass because like I didn't have like these grand, they were going to like have something that made go like, oh my god. It was what I expected, which was like a longer like explanation of the game.
Yeah, it's kind of unfortunate. Like it's like, why did this even need a direct at that point? Like, I think all the new information they gave
because it's a marquee game. It's the next first party game coming out from Nintendo. It's the lead game for their new system. So they're going to give
information they gave us in this direct could have been added in like about 30 seconds.
Well, they're going to do a direct. They're going to give it the royal treatment in terms of marketing.
Yeah.
So you know, that's why. I mean, that said, there was some
I think
cool
it kind of had a
stuff.
negative effect. Like it had more of a negative effect than it had a positive effect for them because it let people down. People hyped up, and it's on them that it's hyped up because they implied that there was something more coming, and there really wasn't. And so I think it had a net negative effect to do this direct.
I am not bothered. I'm not perturbed. I think it looks like a wonderful game, even if it doesn't have a full-blown story mode. But then again, no Mario game does. It does. One of the things they revealed
DS kind of did.
Well, this has the same thing Mario Kart DS did in the
no.
Yeah, it has it has the challenges.
There's no boss fights.
We don't know that because the game isn't out and we haven't played it.
There's kind of a narrative to the event mode in DS. You know, not much, but I mean, you don't really go into any type of Mario game for the story, I think, except for, you know, the Paper Mario or RPG series.
That's why it was like a wild thing, but like, I thought it'd be neat if they added one. But let's go, there's good things. This looks like a good game. Let's not dwell on the negative.
I think the most surprising thing that came from it was in the techniques. They showed new techniques you could do. And so, there was the grinding and the wall jump. We already saw that kind of in the trailer. That was like the big shock moment for a lot of people in the initial trailer during the actual direct. But they also showed that there's like a charge jump and that you might be able to avoid like red shells and stuff by jumping over them. I don't know if you're going to need a feather item to do that, which is getting to items, which we'll get back to later. But that looks like it's kind of might be a little interesting and might make it a little bit more skill based because there's times when Mario Kart gets really frustrating because of the rubber banding built into it and little things like that might help you like dodge an attack or something that otherwise you'd really have no defense against is nice. I'd like that to be the case. And then they also showed, I think the most surprising thing is a rewind feature.
Yeah, which was interesting.
This is very risk reward because when you're rewinding, everybody else is still moving forwards.
Oh yeah, exactly. You know how like broken and unfun it would be if you could unilaterally at any point pause and rewind the entire race?
Yeah. I think the one place
I would be like, what is this?
The one place this has benefit gameplay wise is if you get like knocked off like over a jump or something. And then when that happens in Mario Kart, it's like it takes so long to get picked up and put back on the track and it's so slow go. And being able to just like, you get hit by a shell, you start dropping, just hit that rewind button really quick, get right back to like where you were before it, and hopefully, I don't know if it's just going to repeat you getting hit or if it's going to let you just go from there. That's something we'll have to kind of see how that works. That might be a strategic use of it. It seems like the bigger use of this is just to like learn the tracks so that like you can play without necessarily taking it seriously and just rewind so you can like try things again so you can kind of figure out like, oh, okay, if I jump and then trick here and then I might be able to land on this spot and then that allows me a shortcut. And normally you just have to like try that in the game and then if you miss it, just try it on the next lap. And if you miss it, try it on the next lap. Well, here it's like if you're not necessarily caring about coming in first in the lap, you might be able to just keep rewinding and trying until you nail it and then just know like, okay, now I've learned that maneuver.
Right, yeah, exactly.
So that was probably the biggest surprise in the direct to me was the rewind feature there. Then we got to see the new items. These were all things that we saw basically mostly from the Treehouse events that they had after the direct for the original Switch 2 direct. But we got it kind of condensed here and shown. There's an ice flower, which I'm kind of surprised we haven't had before in a Mario Kart game since it's been in like Mario Kart almost as long as the Fire Flower has.
No, apparently its first appearance in a Mario game was Super Mario Galaxy.
So Wii days, yeah. So it's been 20 years.
It's been 20 years. I'm not kind of surprised. You know, it's kind of like, okay, it's neat to see the Mario Kart finally.
It makes sense for Mario Kart, like as like an item that stalls you, you know?
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, it looks cool, especially like as a counterpart to like the Fire Flower. Coin Shell is completely new. That's interesting. You throw the shell, it gives you a bunch of coins. And the Hammer Brothers and Comic are also like really interesting. Comic, I think, is the most interesting new item. You're literally
it's almost like a Wonder Star from Super Mario Bros. Wonder. It's almost like a Wonder effect from Super Mario Bros. Wonder than anything else. Which they tie it to comics so that it's more related to the entire franchise than just that one game. Exactly. But it's still it just makes me really think of Super Mario Bros. Wonder. That's what that effect reminded me of.
And then we got like a couple returning items. We got the Mega Mushroom and the Feather. The Feather, as far as races go, has only been in the original Mario Kart and Mario Kart Tour. Feather was in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, but only in the battle mode.
Mm-hmm. Apparently you can dodge a blue shell with this, but you have to have like really good timing.
Yeah, you have to have really good timing, so that's interesting. That throws like another wrinkle of strategy into it. Mm-hmm. And then the Mega Mushroom, which was originally in Mario Kart Wii. No, I'm sorry, it was originally in Mario Kart Arcade GP and Mario Kart Arcade GP2.
Yeah, it's always weird that the mushrooms are a boost in Mario Kart, but in other Mario games they make you big, you know? So the Mega Mushroom is kind of like the true mushroom, I'd say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because the Mega Mushroom makes you giant.
It's kind of like a reverse of the Lightning Bolt, the main effect of the Lightning Bolt, which is...
Yeah, Lightning Bolt shrinks everybody, except like this grows you, but grows only you, obviously. I like the new items. I like the Hammer Brother hammers. That's cool.
Yeah, they stay on the track for a bit. So that's kind of, they turn into obstacles. So you can kind of throw them ahead, and even if you miss the person, if you get the hammers ahead of them, you can create obstructions for them, which is cool. It's just going to add to the chaos of having, so many. I wonder how that's going to work when you throw them behind you. Are you going to be able to, like, use it as a defensive measure by throwing behind you in the same way that, like, before you would carry a banana peel or like a shell behind you to block items? You could, like, literally, like, throw a hammer back and it, like, blocks the road. I wonder if that's going to stop, like, red shells or something. Or if they'll swerve around it. There's a lot of, like, interesting things to look into when that game comes out related to the hammers, I think.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. They also, like, explain the costumes and, like, that mechanic. Apparently the Yoshi's restaurants are, like, drive-thrus, so you can pick up food from them, and eating the food gives you, like, a new costume.
Yeah, people kind of were guessing that from the like, Treehouse and the events that were happening. Like, I'd heard people already were kind of saying that that's basically what they thought was happening. What they clarified here is that the foods directly correlate to the costumes. So, like, in a very stereotypical way, like, I don't know, you'd get a pizza and then you'd get, like, an Italian type costume, or you get, like, sushi or something, and you'd get, like, a kimono or something,
Which is fun. Fun.
Nintendo, like, fun with stereotypes style.
It's a company tradition. And what's interesting, kind of annoying, is apparently the unlocked costumes, like, take up their own character slot in the character selection.
Yeah, Nintendo's kind of doing anti-UI since Breath of the Wild a little bit.
Right.
Much more so in, like, the later Zelda games with both, like, Tears of the Kingdom and Echoes of Wisdom were both, like, kind of a chore to get through the menus sometimes to use, like, some of the main abilities. The fuse ability in Tears of the Kingdom was kind of a pain to do, but also the Echoes ability, you know, as you got, like, tons of Echoes and having to kind of scroll through them all, it just kind of became a bit of a pain. And this is kind of is following in that tradition now where Nintendo's like, we're gonna make, like, a really bad UI choice and you're gonna be stuck with it. So hopefully it's not too annoying. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll have to see how it works out when the game comes out. And then one final thing, like, I want to add, I think, like, this ties into the pre-orders, but this is more like just some insane information that's, like, not relevant to, like, anybody trying to pre-order. But apparently the My Nintendo pre-orders in Japan, the president and CEO of Nintendo, Furukawa, had to put out a statement on Twitter saying that there have been over 2.2 million applications in Japan alone for
And this is just through the My
reservations.
Nintendo for the people that have Nintendo Switch Online. This isn't
Yes.
counting, like, anything else.
Yes, this is just for My Nintendo in Japan.
It's something that you can't spam. By its very design, you can't, like, you know,
Yeah,
scalpers can't manipulate.
Yeah, scalpers
this.
can't bot it. Yeah, exactly. Because you have to have, you know, a Nintendo Online account. You have to have played a certain,
50 hours, I think.
50 hours of Switch, you know, of your Switch games by April. So, like, you can't just, like, spam that now and get in. 2.2 million. And they said because of that demand, they won't be able to deliver 2.2 million consoles on launch day to Japan.
This was my fear. I know a lot of people that were, like, waiting for the pre-orders, like, when I was posting in, like, the Game Witness, like, Discord that we both go on occasionally. Everybody was just like, oh, I'm just gonna do the Nintendo thing. I already did the reserve on it, so I'm fine, or something. And I'm like, I'm not trusting that for a second.
No,
like, that, to me, that's my backup. Like, that's like, if I can't get it from, you know, Walmart or Best Buy or whatever, then I'll, like, rely on that.
To put this into perspective, this kind of demand, the original Switch, now Japan's best ever selling console, sold 330,000 units during its first weekend.
Yeah.
So we're potentially going from 330,000 for the Switch's first weekend to whatever number Nintendo can produce for launch day in Japan. Up to 2.2 million, which they said they're not going to meet. So,
up
like,
to more than 6 times.
So, yeah, whatever they can produce. Like, that's insane.
Yeah, it's crazy. It was what I feared, and I felt a little vindicated because everybody, like, when I was posting, like, I'm only using that as a backup, everybody was like, oh, yeah, no, it's not going to be a problem. It's not going to be an issue. And then that came out, and I'm like, told ya.
And Nintendo of America also, like, added a statement, I think, to the page saying, you might not get a reservation for launch day. You might get a reservation later or, like, after launch.
Because when you register, you get that message that says, like, you'll be called when your number is up for your chance to get it or something like that. That doesn't mean you're getting it on launch day. You could be getting that email saying, oh, you can order your Switch 2 now, and it could be like 2 months after launch. You don't know. It's all based on the amount of supply they have. So that's kind of like, I put in for that, and maybe I'll get something. Maybe I'll get a chance to pre-order it and have that already and stuff, but I'm not counting on that. Pre-orders go live at midnight as we're recording this. It's in like an hour, basically, from now.
I mean, I'm going to try to get a pre-order online tonight, and if I can't, then sure, I guess I have to wait for the reservation or whatever, but it's like, I'm not leaving it all up to that. You know?
I'm going to try other means first.
Yes.
And then that's like my backup. But yeah, that's it for the Nintendo news. And now we're going to be moving on to our trailers. We've got 8 to go over. Starting off, we got a trailer for the Sandman.
Yep, this is the second part of the Sandman and the last part, actually. This is the last season of Sandman. There's not going to be any more after this. Netflix is splitting it in parts, just like they do with everything nowadays, because They want to milk it. They want to keep people subscribed as long as possible.
They had this show that was about the origins of hip hop, and it was this very weird show. And there was one year where like they fell way behind in production, and so they had to delay half the season. And they still wanted to put up the first half. So that's the first series that had this kind of staggered release for a season on Netflix, was that one. And it was like a legitimate reason. It wasn't, you know, it was because they literally weren't able to finish the season before they had to get it out, you know? And so they said, okay, well, we'll just release this season in like 2 parts, and we'll do the second part later or something. And the second they did it, it was like a taboo, bro. It's like they had this taboo of like, oh, you know, we just put up our whole seasons at once kind of thing. And the second that happened, it was like, well, I guess we don't have to do that anymore. And so they stopped doing that. And so, you know, Cobra Kai, they put out over like 2 years the final season. It was ridiculous how long they spread that out for. Now they're going to be doing it with this. They're going to be doing it with Stranger Things, I believe, as well. They already did that with the last season of Stranger Things, and they're going to be doing it again, I think. Now they're doing it with, as you mentioned, the Sandman, and also the next series we're going to be talking about a trailer for. But Sandman, at least it's looking good. There's some, you know, bad mojo around Sandman on the creative side of the people involved. I'm not going to really say much more than that, but there's some stuff going on. You can look into that if you want. But I'm happy that we're getting some kind of conclusion for it. And I did like the Sandman series, so I'm eager to see kind of where it goes. This trailer just kind of shows all dreams like siblings, basically, gathering together.
Yes.
It's just kind of a tease. It just kind of shows the setup of that.
Yep, just the setup for the story of the second part. Looks good.
Next up, we got a trailer for Wednesday, which similarly is going to be split. Its second season is going to be split into 2 parts. Wednesday's looking good. It looks like her brother is going to be joining her this time at Nevermore Academy. We got to see a lot of like other people that are joining in. Steve Buscemi shows up in the trailer. We see his character.
Yes.
Yeah, Wednesday continues
Buscemi's
to be
cool.
Wednesday, and Jenna Ortega continues to just embody that character.
Oh yeah,
in such
she's
a way
so great.
that just defines it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm excited for Wednesday to return. Next trailer we got was for the Toxic Avenger. This just trips me the fuck out, because this has got real people in it, you know?
yeah. This has got Peter Dinklage. This has got Kevin Bacon. They're making a trauma film.
Yeah.
It's kind of trippy when you think about it.
Me and my friends used to go
Like
to
this has like a
comic
bigger budget
conventions.
than like this has a bigger budget than the old trauma film, but it's still very much a trauma film if you watch these trailers. Like, yeah.
Me and my friends used to go to like Comic-Con or like other events and buy like trauma movies and stuff, and then watch them together and laugh because they're trauma movies. They embody that so bad it's good, but like intentionally so. They're like the company that represents that kind of logic. And we were really big into watching trauma movies and stuff and enjoying that. And the idea that you'd like watch one and like you'd have Peter Dinklage and Kevin Bacon in it is like, what? Even the Toxic Avenger, which is the biggest trauma franchise, you know?
It still trips me out that it somehow got like a cartoon of the 90s. Like,
yeah, it's weird, you know, but it's happening. I think this is kind of the James Gunn effect, because James Gunn used to work for Troma.
Well, here's the interesting thing. Apparently this movie has been finished for a while. It was shown off at a festival in full, like over a year ago now. Probably almost 2 years ago now. It was shown at a festival. It's just been kicking around because the distributor has had a really difficult time finding a studio willing to release it to theaters. And they finally did. And that's why it's coming out. To the point where Lloyd Kaufman told a fan that if no studio released this movie, that he was going to release it on the internet probably 1 minute at a time.
I wouldn't doubt him. He does weird things, so.
You're right, yeah.
But what this really makes me think of is Roger Corman movies. Roger Corman's, one of the things he's really famous for, he's another B filmmaker, predates Troma stuff. But Roger Corman, what he's really known for is a lot of kind of noteworthy people have apprenticed under him, including Ron Howard.
Yeah,
as
Ron
apprenticed
Howard,
under Roger Corman.
Because the thing Roger Corman, he made B movies, but he was was a professional. He knew how to make movies. He knew how to make movies for a certain budget.
He's very economical, you know?
Yeah. His whole business model was making cheap movies. So making movies that were not expensive to make, that he could turn out quickly and get a return on. You know, that was like his whole thing.
And Troma kind of has Ron Howard, I guess now, like Ron Howard being somebody who apprenticed under Corman, with James Gunn apprenticed under Kaufman at Troma. And like, I think the closest they've had to big people coming out of kind of that umbrella would have been like Matt and Trey from South Park. And they didn't really make their movie under Troma. They like sold it to Troma.
Right, yeah.
So it was like a different case. But like James Gunn directly worked for Troma for a while. He wrote, I believe he wrote Romeo and Juliet, which was like one of the big Troma movies at the time, and then blew up. And now he's huge. James Gunn is just absolutely massive. And I think that's kind of what we owe this movie landing people like Kevin Bacon and Peter Dinklage. I think that's kind of owed to the success of James Gunn.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's cool. I like that they're taking kind of a different approach, with Peter Dinklage's character being this guy who's like struggling to get like medical insurance.
Yeah.
He's like a janitor for this company. And,
it's totally a commentary on capitalism and like the state of healthcare and stuff in America. It's totally like a parody of that, you know?
Taken to the Troma degree. Yeah.
Taken to a Troma degree, yeah, where like everything's like taken to like a comical level.
Yeah. So yeah, now they just need to bring back USA Up All Night.
Exactly. Bring it back.
But that's the Toxic Avenger. Next we got a trailer for Weapons. So I first saw this trailer and I was kind of like a little confused. I'm like, what's going on? This is interesting. This kind of, it just visually has this weird look. I'm like, is this like a Pied Piper kind of story? Like, what's going on here? And then I found out, oh, this is Zach Kriegler's next movie. And we've talked about Barbarian on this podcast. We did an episode about Barbarian before. I absolutely adore Barbarian. I think it is like I'd pick like 2 new horror movies, not counting like from existing franchises, but 2 new horror movies that have come out in like the last 10 years that really impressed me would have been like Ready or Not and Barbarian. And Barbarian the most so out of those 2. And Zach Kriegler's next project was supposed to be Companion, which came out earlier this year. He didn't end up doing that, but he produced it. It was still like the same kind of people involved. It just wasn't him directing. But this is his next project after Barbarian. And I think that's what sells me on it more than anything else, is that Barbarian was so good that I'm just like, okay, what is he going to do next? What's his next project going to be? And then this trailer is it's just weird. Like I said, there's like some kind of a Pied Piper thing going on with like all these children disappearing.
Children are just running out of their homes into the streets. Yeah, it doesn't really like tell you like what's about. It gives you just enough to be intrigued. Like I said, it's a teaser. It's not a full trailer.
Yeah.
So, and it's the same thing like they did with Companion, where like they didn't really tell you what was going on. They just gave you like enough to be intrigued by it. To be like, ooh, what's this?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's the same thing here. Same philosophy.
Yeah. So I'm excited for this. Like Barbarian really impressed me, and that kind of put these guys on my radar. So, and the fact that it's a bunch of children disappearing and the movie's called Weapons, it's like, well, what does that mean?
What does that mean? Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I'm excited about that. Next, we got a trailer for your favorite movie. I know what you did last summer.
I love that. Yeah, thank you.
Also known as Screamlight.
Yeah, also known as shameless cash-in on... This looked bad. This didn't even look fun. Like, I was expecting it to be fun. I liked the original. I don't know, like, if you've seen it.
It had no interest to me.
Oh, man. I don't know how you could be, like, a teenager in the 90s and not just, like...
I like Scream, and I know what you did last summer. Just looked like a total, like, play on that. Like, it was just, like, an Us Too.
I don't know, like that movie... If nothing, that movie had Sarah Michelle Gellar and Jennifer Love Hewitt. So I was going to watch it anyway. So,
I had access to pornography.
Oh, aren't you, like, Mr. Fancy access to pornography? Yeah, I didn't have internet. Okay. So, but anyway, I digress. This movie looks like trash. For one thing, it looks like it's just like a reboot of the original movie, which itself is like, I'm like, okay, we don't need a reboot of that movie.
Well, it's funny because I know what you did last summer was such like a Me Too of Scream.
Yes.
And this is like a Me Too of Scream coming back.
Yes.
Down to the point that the opening scene they show in the trailer is like a ripoff of the opening scene of the first Scream Scream movie. It's just like, what?
It is. And I thought, like, okay, like, is this gonna be, like, ironic? Is this gonna be, like, self-aware? Like, they know what they're doing? Like, no, it's not.
No, it's just cliche.
Yeah, it's just cliche after cliche that you've seen a million times in a million other slasher movies. You know, like, they're not trying to do anything different or put, like, a spin on it like Scream does. Scream movies are fun because, like, they actively mock these tropes.
They're satires. Like, Scream is like satire horror, you know?
Yeah, exactly. It's satire horror. This isn't. This is straight face. And then, so you got this plot that's like a straight carbon copy of the plot of the original movie, where these teenagers kill somebody and they're trying to hide it, and then, like, some mysterious person who knows about the murder starts killing them in a fisherman's jacket and a hook, which I always thought that was, like, one of the lamest slasher villains, to be honest. That's just lame.
Yeah, this is very generic.
Yeah, very generic.
In the 80s, slashers were, like, really kind of iconic, but they were also kind of, like, almost supernatural monsters, most of them, and stuff. And then when that kind of horror came back with Scream, it kind of took this more human approach of, like, okay, these are just regular people that are doing this.
Yeah, Scream, like, took approach like it's a murder mystery.
Yeah.
Too. And that's, like, another part of what makes the Scream movies fun is, like, trying to, like, guess who among the cast is the killers in the movie. I Know What You Did Last Summer doesn't have that. It was like some fisherman in the first movie.
Well, the other thing is the other thing is, like, Scream, like, it had just a straight up human killer.
Yeah.
But they still, like, went for the iconography of making a memorable killer, like the voice and the costume and the, you know what I mean? Like, they still went that direction. They said, we need to establish an iconography.
Yes.
Because we're slashers. Slashers have iconography, you know? And so they did that, and
very memorable iconography,
Yeah, and I Know What You Did Last Summer, it was just, like, full-on generic.
Yeah, full-on generic.
To me, I Know What You Did Last Summer, part of the reason I never watched it and never cared to watch it is, remember back in the day, we used to get, like, when a big movie would come out in theaters, there would be, like, a generic version that would come, like, straight to Blockbuster Video.
Yes.
And I remember this happening all the way up to, like, when the first Thor movie came out. And then, like, some one with, like, Richard Grieco came out that was, like, the same thing because, you know, Thor's just straight Norse mythology anyways, so they just, like, said, oh, well, we have access to all the same characters and everything. We just can't do it the Marvel way or whatever, but it's pretty much the same anyway, so who cares? And they made, like, this generic-ass one that was, like, straight to video stores, you know? And it's just really bad, and it's like, who the fuck would actually watch this? Like, who wants to watch this and not just watch the actual Thor movie? That's what I Know What You Did Last Summer was to me. It was that up for Scream.
Yeah.
It was like, this is the direct-to-video, generic-ass version of Scream, except it wasn't direct-to-video, it was in theaters.
And it was written by the same guy who wrote Scream, funny enough. I Know What You Did Last Summer, the original movie, is like, it's actually, like, a bit smarter than you would take it for. You know, it's actually, like, a bit smarter, like, more knows what it is, even if it's a more sincere movie than Scream. This doesn't. This just wants to be, I don't know. They're not doing anything new with it. And it's just, and then, like, it's so corny on top of it, too, because you got these scenes where, like, the legacy characters from the first movie are coming back. They brought back Freddie Prinze Jr. and Jennifer Love Hewitt for this. And their scenes in the trailer are, like, the worst ones.
They're just angry and ineffectual.
Yeah, they're just saying stupid shit. Like, there's a scene where it shows Freddie Prinze Jr. is coming back because, like, he bursts into this town hall meeting where he's, like, all disheveled. He's like, this isn't the first time there's been violence in this town. And it's like, okay,
like, yeah, we know. Like, why didn't we arrest you for killing somebody, actually?
Yeah, right? Yeah, exactly.
Is surviving another killer like a get-out-of-jail-free card for the killing that you committed?
Right? Yeah, exactly. It's like, yeah, why didn't we arrest you? And then they showed Jennifer Love Hewitt's scene where, like, they're asking her for advice or something, and she goes, first question you should ask is, what did you do last summer? Or something. I'm like, what? You're just repeating the title of the movie? I don't get it. Yeah, it just looks stupid and pointless. I'm like, why is this a thing? I know why it's a thing, because they want to cash in on the new Scream movies, but it's like, it's stupid.
Yeah. Next up, we got a trailer for Heads of State, which is, I believe it's a straight-to-Prime movie, and it's Idris Elba and John Cena.
I thought it was Netflix. But yeah, Idris Elba and John Cena, they're reuniting from the Suicide Squad. They're playing the President of the United States and the Prime Minister of the UK, respectively. figuratively.
Ironically, Idris Elba is playing the president, and John Cena's playing the... Yeah. No, just kidding.
I'm just kidding. I love the way they're doing it, too, because, like, they're playing John Cena as, like, he's this big, dumb, like, action movie star who, like, got elected president. So, like, Idris Elba is, like, already not getting along with him because he has, like, this brash, like, abrasive, like, ego-driven personality that's, like, the kind of thing, like, John Cena does so well. And then, apparently, they're both targeted for assassination. They survive, and then they have to team up and fight the terrorists and stuff, and it's, like, it's such a fun setup.
Yeah. I think we've seen stuff like this that hasn't been good, and I think the saving grace for this is that it's from the team behind Nobody.
Yeah, that's the saving grace, is, like, it's from the team behind Nobody. It's got a fantastic cast. In addition to John Cena and Idris Elba, you know, you have Jack Quaid, you have Priyanka Chopra.
Jack Quaid is having one hell of a fucking year, man. I'm telling you.
He really is. Yeah, he really is.
I've already seen, I think, 2 movies with him in it this year already. It's only April, and I've already watched 2 movies in movie theaters with him in it.
Oh, interesting. I'm looking at the fuller cast, too. It has Paddy Considine, who was...
House of the Dragon.
House of the Dragon. He's in this. Stephen Root's in this, apparently.
Stephen Root's always excellent.
Yeah, love Stephen Root.
I believe you have my stapler.
Yes. And so many other things. He's one of my favorite character actors.
He was great in True Blood, in like the first season of True Blood, back when that show was good.
Yeah, back when that show was good, yeah. This looks like a lot of fun. I can't wait to see this, actually.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to be a great time. And then we got a trailer for Predator Badlands, which we talked about last week. We just got the news that the Predator itself was going to be a protagonist in the movie.
Yeah, we saw this.
And we're like, how is that going to work? Well, I guess we're going to have to wait for a trailer. Next week, here's the fucking trailer.
Yeah, we got the trailer, and it looks like the Predator is going to be on like some test or something, like some test of like his prowess of hunting or whatever, or something.
He's kind of like an outcast amongst the other predators, and he needs to prove himself. And then he's like on this planet, and like everything's basically out to fucking kill. There's
an android played by Elle Fanning, who interestingly enough is a Weyland Yutani android.
Yeah, so they're hitting on that like alien predator crossover stuff that, you know, hasn't really been explored that well, except for a few Easter eggs and the Alien vs. Predator movies, which weren't all that well received.
No, which were pretty bad.
But here they're kind of like, they're touching on that in a more like serious movie, you know, so.
Yeah, exactly. I was surprised watching this trailer because I thought, because this was the follow-up to Prey was like a direct to Hulu. So I thought this was going to be like, ever since like this was announced, I assumed in my head that this was also going to be a direct to Hulu movie. No, this is getting a theatrical release.
I think because Prey got some success.
Yeah, I think so.
And I think that kind of bought this a theatrical release. It's kind of what's happening with the Mandalorian and Grogu movie or whatever, where it like, it's getting a movie because the Mandalorian was a success, the series, you know?
Also, yeah, instead of like Mandalorian season 4, weirdly enough.
Yeah, they're like, well, we could actually do a movie out of this. Like, I think they realized like, we don't have any other movies going on. We kind of flopped out of our movie thing with Star Wars. Like, we need to put something out, you know? And then they said, well, the Mandalorian's popular. Why don't we just make that into a movie instead of continuing it as a series? And that's kind of what's happening here with Prey, is that, you know, or with Predator Badlands, is that Prey, nobody was really expecting much out of it, and it came out and it was really well liked and really well received. And they said, well, let's revive Predator.
Yeah, let's
and
revive
so we got
Predator.
this, we got that, like, the animated series or whatever, the anthology series.
Yeah, we got the anthology series coming. I think I like the concept. It's a really unique concept. This is probably the best way to move forward with a new theatrical Predator film, is give it like a completely different, unique twist to it, instead of just trying to recreate the greatness of the first movie, because they keep trying that and they keep failing, to be honest.
Yeah, so I think it's in good hands. I like that they're rebooting. I like the direction they're going with it, and we'll have to see how this and that series turns out. And that brings us to our last trailer, which we saved the best for last. We got our second trailer for the Fantastic Four First Steps. It includes a better look at Galactus, I guess, or maybe not a better look, but a different look, a different angle on Galactus. We also got our first look at Silver Surfer.
Yes, the new Silver Surfer. She looks great.
Yep. And we got to see the powers, the stretchy powers.
We got to see Mr. Fantastic's powers, which we didn't get to see in the first trailer. We got to see like everybody else's abilities.
Everybody was worried about that because stretchy abilities have never worked that well. I think
they're hard to do.
I think the best they worked in was probably like One Piece, which is the most recent live action One Piece. But I think that only really worked because the tone of that series is kind of silly, and that made it like acceptable that like it could be a little janky and it's still fun.
We got the confirmation of plot element that Sue is pregnant in this, you know.
I love that scene of like, you know, you're late, you know, like I love the way they played on that.
I love the way that how they contrast that. She's pregnant with like their first kid and now suddenly the world is ending. And this is an alternate universe to the MCU, so like the Avengers don't exist. Like they're the only people that can protect this universe.
Yeah, and since they get folded into the MCU, it's not looking like it's good.
Yeah, it's not looking like it's good. And you can see like some of that. I love like you can already see in the trailer like Pedro Pascal's, he's portraying like this version of Reed that like has the incredible weight of the world on his shoulders. And you can see like from some of his expressions and mannerisms that it looks like he's conflicted as to whether he can even do it. It looks like it's going to be one of Marvel's best movies yet, to be honest.
Yeah, I love everything they're going for with this. WandaVision was my favorite of the MCU series. You liked Loki more, I liked WandaVision more. So the director of WandaVision's involved in this, that he's directing this is like, was good news to me. But then on top of that, you have just the casting's been great. I just love the like retrofuturism aesthetic. Yeah. And then they got, you know, the composer of all composers of Lost himself, the composer of Lost and Up, who directed Werewolf by Night. I'm just, everything about this is just, it's different. It's all different. Like they're just breaking away from the tonal constrictions of the MCU and doing something really different. And then they're going to tie that back into the MCU in a way that could end up being very exciting.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But that is it for our trailers, and that is it for our news segment, and that leaves only full spoilers. This week on Full Spoilers, we are going to be discussing the first season of The Bondsman. This is a series that recently dropped on Amazon Prime. It's 8 episodes long. The episodes are only like about a half hour each. And it stars Kevin Bacon as a bail bondsman bounty hunter or whatever who dies and comes back from hell to...
It's basically Justified meets Reaper.
Yeah. Justified meets Reaper or Brimstone. We talked about this before when we saw a trailer for it. That there's basically a genre of this kind of show, and it's like Reaper, you just Brimstone, R.I.P.D. There's like a few different things that are in it, and every so often you'll see something like this come around, and sometimes it's really good, like Reaper and Brimstone, really good examples. Brimstone was unfortunately very short-lived. Then you have stuff like R.I.P.D., not that well received, you know?
You're right, yeah, exactly.
This one seems to be, of all of the ones I've seen, the most like horror themed of them. Like it's going for the gross stuff. It's Blumhouse, it's going for that aesthetic.
Yeah, it's going for that aesthetic, that horror aesthetic. I've been enjoying it. The cast is great. Kevin Bacon's great. The character, I really like Hub as a character. All his dealings with his family. They got Damon Harriman in this. As
from Justified.
From Justified, yes. I mentioned Justified.
Such a sad sap in Justified, and here he's playing like this Boston gangster.
Yeah, this Boston gangster. He's great. Everything about this is great, except for like the supernatural element for most of the show, which I thought was like kind of felt disappointingly undercooked. To give you an idea, he becomes the bounty hunter hunting demons, but the demon hunting only happens for like 2 minutes in each episode.
It's more about like this one on like the family dynamics and stuff, and he's a real fucking asshole.
Hub's a real asshole. Like
he deserves to go to hell.
Yeah, as we peel back, and this does have a story, you know, where they're peeling back the layers. There's like a new mystery. Like the first mystery is, you know, what did Hub do to get sent to hell? We find out like he accidentally murdered an innocent innocent woman, and he didn't tell anybody, he buried her and he's been keeping it a secret.
Yeah.
And
so everybody's like her whole family's been like panicking, looking for her and stuff, and he's just been living his life.
Yeah.
And there's like a casual cruelty to it that just like, he just doesn't care. And it's just every so often, it's like the show kind of tricks you because he's the lead, he's the main character. So you want to like relate to him. And then every so often he does something and you're just like, what a fucking dick move.
Yeah.
Like, his son was like doing the lookout thing and he told his son to drive off and then called the fucking sheriff on his son to use as a distraction. I'm like, what a dick.
Yeah, what a dick. And you know what? And I think that's refreshing. I think it's refreshing to have a protagonist that's like, heavily flawed, in that way. It leads into one of like the best turns in the series, which is like the last episode when they're fighting Lilith and he manages to trap Lilith and she basically lies to him. She says she'll resurrect the woman he murdered and then he won't have to go to hell and then, his family will forgive him and everything will be good. And he knows the consequences of letting Lilith go is, she'll end the world. But the idea of like him getting off scot-free for what he's done is too appealing to him that he goes with it.
Yeah, he doesn't just go with it. He goes with it and just basically thinks like, oh, everybody else should be happy about this too,
Yeah, like everything's good now. Everybody should be happy. And it leads to some really, really bad consequences specifically for him that will take us into season 2.
His wife.
His wife. I thought that was like a great season ending and I thought that was like a great example of his character and like how flawed his character is and how his poor selfish decision making is just going to lead to more problems.
Yeah, that's the thing. It took me a while to kind of reconcile that, to really kind of understand that that's what it's doing. And because it was like totally off for a while. Like I'd be watching it and I'd just be like, okay, yeah, I like this character. Yeah, get those fucking assholes. Yeah, do your job. That's cool. This is fun to watch. And then he does some dick move and it's like, what the fuck, man? Like,
because you're kind of like trained by media, and this kind of plays on that expectation where you're kind of like, oh yeah, the charismatic, rough and tumble action lead, who's kind of a dick, but he's got like a heart of gold, and always does the right thing. And it's like, that's not this character.
Yeah, not at all. Yeah. To the point where like they have the gangster character that's trying to take his wife, and he ends up being kind of more relatable.
he ends up being more sympathetic.
Yeah.
Because they make it like clear a bit into the season. He actually is trying to change. It's not a bit.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting how like they play with your expectations because they give you something familiar that you expect and then like they twist it around.
Yeah.
As time goes on.
Yeah.
Hub is exactly who you think he is at first blush, but then when you spend more time with him, you're like, oh, he's not that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the other thing that this series does really well, like you said, the supernatural stuff wasn't as well done, mostly because of how little time is devoted to it and how it doesn't really get into it.
The demon of the week is kind of like, it's the weakest element to it because like they're just there. It's like, and it slips into kind of like a formula where like it opens with somebody dying and getting possessed by a demon and then they just kind of don't do anything until Hub shows up and kills them.
This is by nature of the genre, I could say, or the format of this kind of show. In Reaper, they got around it by making it funny.
Yeah. Yeah, they
made
made it humorous.
In Brimstone, they got around it by just always having like a much more dire and serious tone. Like it just always dwelled in that more dire, serious tone, and that's kind of what made that work in that show, And in here, it's kind of it's the weakest part. But one thing that they do well, extremely well, is there's some straight up graphic, brutal killing.
There's some brutal kills.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
The opening kill, which is him when he dies, I thought was particularly brutal.
Yeah.
Because his head is held back, and it's a close-up on his face as his head is held back, looking straight into his eyes as his throat is slit. Like, slowly. It is an absolutely brutal kill. And I think that sets a tone for some of the kills in it that are, like, impressive. Like, I was like, okay, yeah, that's the aesthetic they're going for. This is Blumhouse, and they're going for that aesthetic.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
So, any of the effects weren't particularly great. Like, the demon effects weren't, they were okay, but it's like they weren't as cool as, say, like Supernatural or something.
No, definitely
people
not.
have done it better, but I think they nailed it in the brutality and the gore and the fights.
Yeah, I think so. And also, the element does get better. As I said, when you get to the end of the season, you get the show's like first real like major villain, you know, when you get to Lilith. That's much more exciting.
Yeah. I think part of it that made it like a little bit lesser for me too, I think in those moments with the way the supernatural elements were handled is that I had just seen, and I'm not going to talk too much about this, I'm just mentioning it, I had just seen Sinners around the time I also watched the finale for this. Like it was kind of like close quarters to each other, you know? And like Sinners does some really cool stuff with like lore and stuff that it's just really interesting. And so when you go here and it's like, it's not really doing that much.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like, man, I want more from like the demon encounters, but it's fine. Like the family and character drama is always like good enough to keep you going.
Yeah, I'll say this too is that I hate country music. So the second they had the really long shot of his wife singing and it was all country, I was like, oh god.
Oh yeah, the country.
I was like, oh, I don't want to watch this shit. Like, oh god, this is country. But when they had the whole family performing, when they thought the world was basically going to end and that they were like going to lose or whatever, and they were all like sitting on the patio together and they just started performing together, I'm like, okay, this makes it all work. That kind of moment, they're all like performing together. It's like, okay, yeah, you kind of feel the relationships of this family that like, even though he's like a total fucking asshole, and even though there's like deep problems and stuff here within this family, like you have this moment and it works. I think that sold me on the series a bit too, where I was a little bit mixed, I think, until the end.
Yeah, that's fair. Overall, I enjoyed it. Solid. So I give it an A.
Yeah, I think it's a good show. It's worth checking out, especially if you just wanted to see some cool kills. See, Kevin Bacon is great in it. He's great in everything. He's just
Kevin Bacon's fantastic.
Yeah.
So is David Harriman, to be honest.
Yeah.
He's a good actor.
Very different. It was almost like hard to reconcile after seeing him for so long in Justified and that character just being such a sad sack,
Crow.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very different type of character. You know, criminal in the same way, but very different as far as like competency level and stuff, you know?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But that is it for The Bondsman. It's on Amazon Prime. It's 8 episodes, half-hour episodes. It's out. The whole thing's up right now, so you can check that out. And hopefully it gets a second season. It's looking like it's set up for one. We just need to actually get that. But next week, we are going to be talking about Black Mirror Season 7. It's out right now. You can check it out, but we haven't gotten to it yet. And that'll be for next week's discussion. Until then, you can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Tyson Gifford. You can follow Will. He is at Voxel Hero. You can check out both of those handles also on Blue Sky. Same handles. To follow us there as well. If you go to our website, thetotallscreen.com, and open up a container story for any of the podcast episodes and scroll down to the bottom paragraph, you'll find all of the links to our SoundCloud page, our RSS feed, everything. It's all there. You can also subscribe to our podcast through your favorite podcast client of choice, like Apple Podcasts or Pocket Cast. And the entire backlog of our podcast, as well as additional content, is available on our YouTube channel, which again you can find by going to our website, thetotallscreen.com, and opening up a container story and scrolling down to the bottom there. The link is there with all of the other links. So check that out. Until next week, thank you everybody for listening. Night.
Thank you for listening to the OnScreen podcast, the official podcast of The Total Screen. Visit our website at thetotalscreen.com. This podcast can be found on any major podcast client, including Pocket Cast and Apple Podcast. The entire backlog of this podcast and other content can be found on our YouTube channel.